Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 16th, 2020. Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, first and foremost, I want to say thank you and appreciation to all the frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, the doctors, the first responders, who still know that there's this COVID-19 still raising havoc on the United States. It seems like everybody else has forgotten about it, because as we look at the White House, we look at coaches, we look at owners of teams, Charlton, it reminds me of a show that used to be on back in the 70s, To Tell the Truth.
To tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. And from anywhere in the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But if you don't have a smart TV, you'll be looking at a still picture. Really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Big C, everybody's still on pause. Every now and then you got to take your foot off the pause so you can get going with things. I want to make sure we never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They are experienced at helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
And our veterans are always in need every day, Charlton. During this COVID-19, during this close down of the country and lack of sports, people tend to forget about the veterans still have daily needs, Charlton, for mental help out there and financial help. And we think we lose some 22 a day in this country to suicide because they don't have access, Charlton. But the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is what we give out in every one of our shows, trying to help those veterans out. We need to be more of a conservative effort as a whole nation to take care of the veterans who have served this country so admirably and allowed you to have the freedom and peace that you do have in this country. So never turn your back on the veterans. The Veteran Suicide Hotline number is there for not just for them, but for everybody else in the public also, because we have so many young people that lose their lives to suicide. Also, help out a veteran by giving out that number.
Reach out and touch somebody's hand. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 to get some help. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and they can get some help. They really do a good job helping people. I'm also very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T, Uverse TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. Just reach out to them. Tell them Big C Essential. The goal is simple. Recruit 100 real estate brokers. Put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams do it. And they're starting to do it even more. Big C, watch TV work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. For those of you looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can see opportunities available for you in real estate. Big C, I really do appreciate, number one, today the weather's not so bad. Yesterday I thought Mother Nature was trying to interfere with the call. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Mother Nature raised havoc on us down here, Charlton. It knocked out all the phone services and couldn't get in touch with anybody until about 2 o'clock in the morning. So, I mean, we have a beautiful sunshiny day here. The weather's a little cooler, and, still no sports. Still no sports,
but it's all fair in love and war. I want to just get into some things that have happened in the world of sports. Right now, we're supposed to be in Major League Baseball. In fact, we have a show that sponsors Giants baseball, San Francisco Giants baseball from the National League, and they're on throughout the year and there's a real estate program that we're affiliated with that's also covering Giants baseball. But when you think about the Major League Baseball 2020 all the way to 2021 season may be in jeopardy because of the lockout, Big C. We haven't had a lockout in baseball since the 94-95 season, but COVID has knocked out a lot of things, Big C. You think we're going to get even a start of maybe even 50 games, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, there's not a lockout in baseball. Right now, baseball is just haggling over money. You know, the owners want to have their leverage and the players want to have their leverage. It's all down to dollars and cents right now. Because if the sport was going to play, baseball would be underway. But right now, the owners are not trying to pay the players. You know, this is billionaires and millionaires haggling with each other. They're not haggling about the COVID, even though there's no sports that should be played because of this COVID-19, Charlton.
Yeah.
In baseball, it's down to dollars and cents right now.
It is down to dollars and cents. Remember, it was just last year we were talking about Bryce Harper, who still doesn't bat over 300, and he got the 300. I think he got $330 million. Manny Machado got over $300 million. You know, Christian Yelich making his money. And then also Mike Trout got the $400 million or whatever it is. I don't know if you can count the $400 million, but that's a lot of money. It's amazing that none of these guys have to go to work, Big C. That's a nice day, Big C. You're nuts.
Well, you know, they're not being paid while they're not working. I mean, when you look at the average American who's lost their jobs during this pandemic, some 40 million Americans, Charlton, and having to survive just on unemployment, whatever that pays in a state.
Yeah.
But as you look at these guys who make tens of thousands of dollars a game, saying, you know, we're not satisfied dealing with a prorated salary.
Yeah, they're not satisfied dealing with a prorated salary. I remember watching back in the day when Barry Bonds hit 73 home runs over at AT&T Park, Pac Ballpark. They've changed it now, Oracle Ballpark, and he and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were all hitting balls. Baseball, what they really need to do, and I might be sounding a little bit cynical, but I think it really makes more sense if they allow guys to do whatever the guys were doing that were hitting 60 and 70 home runs. Let's let them do that. That'll make baseball more exciting when it comes back. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's probably what they're going to have to do, Charlton, is turn their blind eye on or even use up the baseball. But, you know, when they had the home run stretches, Charlton, when you had McGwire and Sosa and Bonds, you know, knocking them out of the park, Canseco and Gonzalez and all of those players, Brady Anderson, these guys hitting 50-plus home runs a year. That ignited baseball. Baseball needed that infusion, whether it was steroids or whatever it was, but it needed to bring people back into the ballpark, and the long ball did that. But right now, baseball stands in jeopardy of losing so many young fans, Charlton, because of this haggling that's going on and this fighting and bickering over the money. And when they come back, if they're playing a game without fans, then people are just going to gravitate to the NBA and the NFL because they're going to say baseball is just too long, and they're fighting over money when they could have been playing. Yeah, they're fighting over money, and who hasn't fought over money at some point in time? WNBA, they agree to a 22-game season. They're going to play it at IMG Academy down in Florida, and they're going to start in late July. IMG Academy is really a high school facility where they have in fact, IMG Academy, their football program is really nice. Their weight room is like a college weight room, Big C, but they've been banned from participating in the state of California high school playoffs. But we have WNBA. They plan on having a season. I guess they're going to say starting at the end of July in a smaller arena. But is better than not playing at all if they're going to do it, even though COVID-19 is increasing, especially in some of those states that they said it went away. Big C, your thoughts? Well, Charlton, it's really spiking down in Florida, and I'm not an advocate for any sport to come back this year, being realistic about it. You know, COVID-19 is spiking in 22 states. And as I look at the owners of all these leagues, why are they just having conference calls? If they were saying that, you know, the athletes are not in peril, why don't they get together and have the meetings as they usually do in some conference room somewhere? But, Charlton, even these owners said they're not going to risk themselves to get together to discuss what the players are going to do. It's like the NFL competition committee. They have a meeting tomorrow. But it's a conference meeting, Charlton, over the phone, so that they'll all be on a computer sitting hundreds of miles away from each other. They're not going to put their health in peril to discuss the health of the players who they want to get together physically. Now, even because governors, they're under pressure too, there are people saying, you know, the Raiders just moved from Oakland down to Las Vegas, Big C. There are people who know if they don't get something back, maybe they can get threatened under the table that people will move their franchise. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo
He even states that the U.S. Open can play in August, as of now, because COVID-19, they don't know what's going on, but at least they're trying to put it on the books as opposed to saying no. So Andrew Cuomo's been one of the states in New York that's been hit very hard. But tennis is big, and when they have the U.S. Open, they want to have the whole world convenes on New York City, either in attendance or by television. But they're not going to have an arena full of people at the U.S. Open if they do play at Big C. Your thoughts?
They're not going to have an arena full of the top players in the world either, Charlton. Roger Federer is out for the year. Rafa Nadal said he will not show up based on the conditions that they have. Djokovic said he will not show up either. So you're looking at the three top men's players in the world refusing to compete. So as you're going on and saying that you're going to have these events, the guys are saying that, no, I'm not putting my health out there. And when you have not eliminated this COVID-19, regardless of having fans or not in the arena, that the presence of this will still exist.
Yeah, it will exist. But I think in what the governors are doing, whether it's from California to Florida, they're all, and especially down in Texas, where we have some Dallas Cowboys and some Houston Texans players test positive for COVID-19. But they want to say, they want to speak to their politicians and their donors to say, look, I open it up, and the president's having people sign waivers. If you get sick, don't look at me. You should have known. You should have read the fine print. And I think they're doing it just for their political lives more so than the health of their constituents, basically. That makes sense to you?
Well, when was the last time that the White House had a press briefing, Charlton, on COVID-19? We don't even know where everybody is. I think they're in the witness protection program. Dr. Fauci,
Yeah.
Dr. Birx, and everybody else that was a part of that committee. We're not hearing anything from them any longer.
Yeah.
Even though the positive rate and the death toll rises in America every day, I think we're up around 117,000 Americans that have lost their lives to this horrific disease, Charlton. And there's no end in sight. There's no vaccine in sight. And so everybody's playing, hey, just forget about it. Those people that are gone, they're gone. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's get on with our political lives. And I think that's wrong because as the government has turned its back on COVID-19,
Yeah.
it's picking up again. And more people are becoming affected by it. And I guess it has to get to a point where somebody in their families are affected by it and does not recover for them to think that it's real.
Did you happen to see, I know we couldn't talk much yesterday because our phone lines were just dropping all over the country, but did you happen to see that POTUS gave the commencement speech at West Point, and he was walking down stairs, and I guess he said it was slippery. It is a lot of condensation builds up in the summertime when it's 85, 90 degrees Big C, but he said it was slippery, and he was having a hard time. He looked like he would not have passed a sobriety test, if that makes sense to you. And then when he held up a glass of water, the same way he held up the Bible in front of the church in Washington, D.C. that he goes to once a year, he held up a glass of water with his right hand, and he could not lift it to his mouth. Now, I know you own restaurants. When people can't get a libation into the mouth and he had to use his left hand, isn't that the time the bartender says, hey, you've had enough, Big C? Is everything okay with POTUS, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you got to understand this man's 74 years old, so it's not like he's some spring chicken. And he did have trouble walking down the ramp. I mean, the commander that was walking right next to him, Charlton, had no problem walking down that same slippery ramp.
Yeah.
And, last time I weighed a glass of water, it wasn't that heavy. And I didn't need two hands to pick it up. I mean, the president has all types of issues, Charlton.
Yeah.
As long as he can live the facade and tell the lie, his face is going to believe whatever he tells.
Yeah, I kind of feel for him because I was watching some of his speeches that he had when he was saying that President Obama was not a real American, and that birther garbage that he started with the birtherism, and he had a lot more energy when he was stomping to become the Republican nominee, and a lot of the things that he was saying when he gave his speech about when you arrest people, rough them up and don't be so nice to them, and he was telling law enforcement that, and he had a lot more energy then. But now it looks like he's slurring his speech a little bit, and I just wonder if people more than Big C Sports is paying attention. And I just did that on purpose, but it's a real issue.
Well,
Big C.
You also look at him when he's delivering, Charlton. He's leaning on the podium quite a bit. He's not just standing there under his own power, Charlton. He's needing the support of the podium wherever he's speaking at.
Yeah. Well, I know, and people really got to look into it. I want to ask you something because it's very personal to me, and it should be personal to everybody. I really love this country. It's built great on dialogue. But I know POTUS today, he gave a speech and on police reform. And primarily from what I got out of it, Big C, and I know everybody can have their own opinions about POTUS and police reform, but what I got out of it when he gave his speech on police reform, he said that he was going to outlaw the chokehold unless it was necessary. Well, that's what we have now, Big C. Officers say they did it because it's necessary. But he did say he's also going to keep, I guess, some type of national registry on bad police officers, so when they do bad, they can't treat them like a priest and just send them to another part of the country or another part of the world. Did you think he went far enough? But I want to ask you a follow-up after that, Big C, your thoughts.
Did you hear what he said today during his speech, Charlton? That executive order, and I think everybody missed what he said in that executive order. These are suggestions. That executive order is not implementing anything. It's not implementing the banning of chokehold. It wasn't implementing the police registry, that police who committed horrid offenses, Charlton. It wasn't even, mandating police reform. It was suggestion. And that's what he signed. He sold a bill of goods to everybody saying he was signing this executive order on police reform. He cannot have police reform in an executive order. That's what people don't understand. It's only a suggestion.
Yeah.
It would take an act of Congress to create police reform, to create laws. The president can't create the law. He needs Congress for that. And yet the Senate is all Republicans. You think they wouldn't pass police reform? It would be bipartisan in the House, Charlton. He doesn't push anything to the House. If he puts out this executive order, he makes his base think that he's done something. But he said in clear English, these are suggestions.
Yeah.
He's not implementing anything.
Yeah, and it's ironic when I only listened to as much as I had the chance to, but he never atoned or repented on when he said, rough them up when you arrest them. And he had the statement about the vicious dogs. They're going to be met with vicious dogs and other ominous weapons. If that's the commander-in-chief giving those messages to law enforcement, I think vicious dogs biting people would be more horrendous, or just as horrendous as a chokehold, which is a suggestion. And I just wonder how many times people can hear that and realize that this man really is just for himself and not even protecting people.
The Supreme Court actually backed that up. Several years ago, there was an incident in New York where they had a handcuffed homeless man that was down, and the police released the dogs on him. And the Supreme Court sided with the police. So he took a slant from the Supreme Court when he said that. The Supreme Court has sided with the police that you can stick the dogs on a man even when he's handcuffed.
That's just incredible. I know we all love our sports, and a lot of people.
And these are the people who create the laws in the country, okay?
Yeah.
The Supreme Court, this is not an appellate court, this is the Supreme Court. They said it was okay for law enforcement to take a cuffed man and release the dogs on him, just like they did the blacks back in the 60s.
And the Supreme Court, there's 9 Supreme Court justices, and when you think about it, Justice Stephen Breyer, Associate Justice Clarence Thomas, Chief Justice John G. Roberts, Jr., Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice Samuel A. Alito, and then you have Justice McNeil Gorsuch, who had a lot of issues trying to even get confirmed, Justice Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan, Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And when you think about it, there's so many times when they're behind the scenes, and there are 9 justices that make it the Supreme Court, 1 Chief Justice, 8 Associate Justice, and the Honorable, as they say, John G. Roberts, Jr., the 17th Chief Justice of the United States, and there have been 102 Associate Justices in the court's history. I would just hope that people can, when they go to the ballot box, whether it's police reform or the right to vote or Black Lives Matter or whatever matters, whatever they're trying to do, we still got to get people out to vote, because marching is one thing. But I want to get your thoughts too, because at least what I do with Big C Sports, as much as I can, I want to steer people back to the Constitution and the Supreme Court, the justices that make up the Supreme Court, because to me, that's the only way we can really adjudicate change. It's through the law. And marching helps, yeah, nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, if we don't get some laws changed as opposed to suggestions, then people, they really don't change. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you always talk about amendments to the Constitution. Even though you have an amendment to the Constitution, it does not dilute the original 10
Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights
that were there. They're still in place. So those laws are still implemented. And so you can say that it's a living, breathing document and they have amendments, but they do not eliminate the bad parts of it. That's the thing that you don't understand. So you're always able to go back and use that bad paper from the Constitution and implement it in any court case. It happens all the time. That's why people need to understand the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment is what people still use, and they devoid black people of the 14th Amendment. It sits there. You say it's a living and breathing document. Read the 14th Amendment and see where blacks are not getting justice from the 14th Amendment.
But at the same time, you got to understand, too, and I'm going to read this, and people can Google it themselves, too, whether you're doing sports and wanting to see if they're going to get convinced players to go play in a bubble with COVID-19 in a bubble when they say you're better off out in fresh air, but some athletes are going to get in the bubble anyway. So what does the 14th Amendment say? No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And you got to understand, when you say the original 10 Bill of Rights didn't make any sense and that you don't like that document, we had slavery before and we don't have it now. That's because of our constitutional amendments, Big C. So I know you may not like how the road was paved in the beginning, but as you complete the paving of a road, any highway, the end doesn't always complete what the beginning was. It changes things along the way. So the Constitution is so important. Without that, we have no chance at all to adjudicate law. There would be no need to even go to court because we'll say, well, you didn't have any rights back in 1619. Why are you going to court now? Things change, Big C. Your thoughts?
Okay, Mr. Brooks that got shot. I think his name was Brooks or Davis that got shot in Atlanta on Friday night. Did he have a right to go to court, Charlton? I mean, we look at Arbery. Did he have a right to go to court when he was hunted down by vigilantes? We look at the young man that died in Minneapolis. Did he have a right to go to court, Charlton? He was handcuffed already. So as we look at what these amendments say and the Constitution says, we had slavery for a long time, for 100 years here in America. When slavery ended, did they just say, hey, you guys are cool now? We're all on the same plane? Have they ever said that to blacks in America? That you guys don't have to worry about it. You're going to get the same equal treatment that the 14th Amendment says. Enlighten me. I'm old and I'm not going to live to a point, Charlton, where I get to see equality in America, total equality. But tell me where the 14th Amendment is implemented unilaterally in the United States every day.
Well, all you got to do is open your eyes when you realize whether it's Arbery or anybody else who's been horrifically murdered, life came to an end, unjustifiably, they have what's called recourse through the courts, and their family members are the ones that are the beneficiaries of that recourse. If they didn't,
but you're talking about recourse. You can't get a life back in the court. You're talking about financial. I think that anybody would leave the financial on the table to have that family member back. I mean, you can't put a price on family members. You can't put a price on the family heritage. You cannot do that to say, okay, we can go in and sue you and potentially get money for an unjustifiable homicide. What about the two young men that were hung out in California last week, one in Palmdale and one in Orange County, across from the library? They were hung from trees, Charlton. So what kind of recourse are they going to get? Because they don't have any witnesses to the incident. And I know these guys didn't climb up a tree and tie a rope up there and hang themselves.
No, that was horrendous. But I want to ask you a question. When a slave was murdered, when they were brought to the United States of America in 1619, when they were murdered, or their children were sold off, are men or children murdered, destroyed? Did they have any recourse to the law, Big C?
Do they have any recourse to the law now? I mean,
no, but I asked you a question.
As it goes, and I know you brought up the situation about an Erin Andrews broadcast a couple of weeks ago that she got $55 million in a lawsuit for somebody peeking at her. You can add up all the blacks that's been killed in America in the last 2 or 3 years, Charlton. They haven't gathered $55 million between them all in lawsuits. They have not, because the value of losing a black life versus looking at a naked white woman is not the same.
Well, that's about a jury, but I ask you a question. When the slaves were still slaves before the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, we got to be fair. When they were murdered, did they have any rights under the law? Yes or no?
They didn't have any rights under the law,
Okay.
even after the Emancipation Proclamation.
That's
Look
not
at the
true.
number of slaves that was, the free black people that was murdered. Go to the museum there in Alabama, Charlton, where they got the 4,400 placards of people that were hung. This was after the Emancipation Proclamation. That's the ones they can account for, not the one that they don't have accounting for. But they got 4,400 names hanging on placards that were put on there after the Emancipation Proclamation, after allegedly slaves were free in America, Charlton. Did any of those people get restitution? No. Or what did President Andrew Jackson do after Abraham Lincoln was killed to slaves and former slaves?
He vetoed the bill. At the same time, I want to ask you.
So he took away the rights of Americans. That's what I'm asking you. He took away the inalienable rights of American citizens. Did he not?
He gave that land back to white slave owners.
But he told the black people that they could not have equality in America after the Emancipation Proclamation. Did he not?
He gave the land back to white Americans.
But I'm asking, is it yes or no? Did he tell them they could not have equality?
I don't think you heard my answer to the question. He gave it back to them.
He said he gave the land back.
Exactly.
So what did he do? He took the land from the black people. They were free, were they not?
Big C, at some point in time, you got to look at today's law. I want to ask you this very simple question, because you're listening to all over the world. From the day of slavery, 1619, to this abolishment in 1865, do black Americans have more rights today that they did not have in 1619? Big C, your thoughts?
I would say as a collective unit, they do have more rights. Charlton, do they live in fear?
Let me ask you a question.
Do blacks still live in fear in America?
I don't know. You got to ask yourself that question. But
I answered. They have more rights than what they had at the end of slavery.
Thank you. You know what?
Answer this question. Do blacks still live in fear in America?
I think some people live in fear, black and white. But I want to ask you.
You can't lump it together. I'm asking you blacks.
I didn't take a survey of that. You can take an answer.
I'm asking you a direct question. Do blacks live in fear in America?
I haven't surveyed every black American. I haven't surveyed every black American. I'm going to say some do and some don't. Only you can answer that question too. Do you live in fear every day? Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. But I live in fear for me. I live in fear for my sons when they walk out of their houses, Charlton. I live in fear because I witness what go on all the time.
At the same
time, I'm not naive to the facts because I've had these things happen to me, and I know how quick it can escalate.
Exactly. But what you also have acknowledged is that we have an amendment to the Constitution that gives us all protections. Where if those cops are being brought up on charges, right? That would not have happened before the 13th Amendment, Big C. But everybody has their own thought. Before we come up on the pause, in fact, our show is going by too fast. I want to come up on what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And when I come back, I want to ask you some things about sports and also the amendments and how we solve things, because I hear too many people on radio and TV saying, what's this Black Lives Matter all about? Can't we just get back to playing sports? We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV or you'll be looking at a still picture. In the NBA, there is a gentleman by the name of Avery Bradley. He wants a coalition plan in place before the start of the NBA season. There have been some athletes saying that we don't need to have basketball right now until we solve things through the court system. I mean, if the court decided not to go to work, we would never have anything solved. I believe they can play if they want to play. If they're going to run away from COVID-19, I understand that. My doctor says that any person that plays in a bubble if it's COVID-19, it's like playing Russian roulette. Doesn't make any sense. But the Black Congress, the Congressional Black Caucus, they presented what's called the Marshall Plan for African Americans in 2018. There's also a bill called H.R. 40. It deals with reparations, the same type of reparations that President Truman gave to Germany and Western Europe after World War II, and would you believe he did it with American taxpayer dollars, Big C, and no one complained. And I think that's more of a solution than marching so much, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, if all Americans have the same inalienable rights, why aren't those bills passed then, Joe?
Because it takes people. That's why people have to vote.
But who would pass it? Would it be the Senate?
It takes the House.
That bill, get it to the president?
It takes the House.
That's who's in charge of that.
Right.
If it's sitting there and the bill is there, then the Senate has to pass it, which the Senate has refused to pass anything since Obama became president.
Exactly.
And the president would not sign it at all. So what I'm saying is it takes votes. Those guys have to vote on it to get it there. It's been passed in the House, so why has it not been approved in the Senate since all Americans have the same rights?
That's a very good question, and we do have a nation that's based on law. It takes both sides. It takes the House, the Senate, and Congress, and the president has to sign it, just like the suggestion.
It's been passed in the House. It's sitting dead in the Senate. The Senate is controlled by the Republicans. All the Republican senators except for 3 are white.
Yeah.
And they have the majority vote. And I'm just asking, why won't they pass it since all Americans have the same rights, you say?
I don't know those gentlemen. They may have constituents that they want to appeal to, but at the same time, Big C, President Trump is only going to be president until November 3rd for the election, and he's going to be voted out of office, okay? And people know that. There are even white Americans who did not appreciate seeing their children and grandchildren being sprayed with mace or whatever he was spraying them with when he tried to go do that Adolf Hitler salute at the church with his hand on the Bible. And isn't it amazing how God works? The man used the Bible upside down to pose in front of a church with his right hand. About a week later, that right hand couldn't even lift a glass of water. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, like I said, I still come back to the Senate. For 8 years, they fought against Obama not passing anything.
Yeah.
And if Trump is not reelected as president, you got a Democratic president, what's going to make them vote with that Democratic president to pass these bills? Those are the guys that are there. And they're still in office another 2 years until the next midterm election.
Yeah, but we still have to exercise our constitutional rights to vote, and we got to vote for our senators, our civic leaders, our governors, our mayors. It takes a collective voice. And the thing that I see, even for people that say, well, the president, it was a farce today, that he really didn't mean anything, and he never apologized for telling, I think the NFL owners fire the SOBs when they want to stand up for their rights. That would have, and ironically, after saying fire the SOBs for protesting, then he comes out and gives a suggestion about how to change a police reform. So even he is starting to listen, even though it's a lot of lip service. I don't know what paper he signed, but he signed something, but the lip service was a suggestion, not an act. But that's a lot different than the president that said fire the SOBs. Big C, your thoughts?
That piece of paper was a dead piece of paper. You got to understand the difference between enacting a law and making a suggestion. It was suggested.
Yeah.
Just like we have suggestions on the show all the time. That's the only thing he did was suggest. He didn't mandate anything. You could have mandated it and made it a law. He chose not to do that. He made a suggestion.
Yeah.
Just like he said, well, I tell people to take hydroxychloroquine. That's a suggestion. It wasn't a mandate. This is the same thing as what he did today. He made a suggestion. And if you're running an office and you've been okay with the way you're running office and there's no reprimand, why should you change?
Yeah, and sometimes you'll change when people get out and vote on November 3rd. That's why it's going to change. But I want to ask your thoughts, because everybody has their opinion about what needs to be done. And I don't know more about than what I've heard about with LA Lakers guard Avery Bradley. He's a co-leader of a players coalition. It's amazing how people say stay out of politics when you're an athlete. And I know everybody, Billy Graham was talking to Nixon about politics, and he said stay out of politics when he told Nixon that Jesus was black, a man of color. But ironically, Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving says his group is eager to hear the league office, ownership, and sponsors detail a plan on issues of importance to the black community before the NBA start in Orlando, Florida. And I'm telling Kyrie Irving and Avery Bradley and any of the NBA owners, the plan is already there. And if they would just take the time to Google H.R. 40, which is about reparations, and also I think United Senator the United States Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, she's the one that's in charge. She's the one that sponsored. It's called the HR 40, and also the reparations for Black Americans. Because once people start playing again, if we don't get laws in place, it's just going to be the same old thing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is the major reason why they want all these teams to come play, Charleston, because everybody's been able to focus on all the negativity that's been going on in the United States. You haven't been able to use sports as a detractor from it. You've been able to witness it because you don't have any live sports on, so you get all these news cycles that continuously run. So continuously over and over, you're seeing all these heinous incidents that have been occurring in America.
Yeah.
And so they want sports out there. They don't mind Black athletes going out there sacrificing themselves, whether it's in high school, college, or professional, because the owners are not willing to get together. And you tell me how in the hell you practice social distancing in football. I was involved in the game for over 20 years. And so when I look at that game, Charlton, how do you practice social distancing in football? From the time you walk in the locker room to you go in there and get your ankles taped, get your elbow taped, whatever. You know, the trainer is all over you, Charlton. When you're in your locker room, you're shoulder to shoulder against your teammates. And when you get out to practice, Charlton, that's the only time you get social distancing is when you're stretching part-time.
Yeah.
But anytime you line up for a play, you're a yard apart from everybody. And the center and the quarterback are making physical contact every play with the hands on the butt.
Yeah.
And the linemen are making contact every snap. So how in the hell do you practice social distancing? How do you keep anybody safe? And we already got players tested positive for COVID-19. So once you get into training camp, Charlton, it's a wildfire.
Yeah, and what I love about what we do with Big C Sports, we don't have to agree on things, Big C, but what I do ask people is Google everything we say. HR 40, and it's so important. People keep saying, well, when is LeBron James going to speak up? LeBron James is not a lawmaker. He's not a policymaker. He's not a lawyer. HR 40 is a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. For anyone complaining about that, they already did it for Germany and Western Europe. It's to address the fundamental injustice, the cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery in the United States and the 13 colonies between 1619 and 1865. We always talk about wanting to form a more perfect union, and I believe that's powerful. But I really want to implore, I know a lot of things we talk about, Big C, I'm not bragging, but anyone can Google. The platform that we have with Big C Sports is being copied by ESPN, almost every program they have, by even, you can say, Fox Sports, CBS Sports, every TV and radio station that I've heard, at least the smart guys, there's a lot of dumb guys still reading your scores. If I can implore these athletes, don't worry about your owner. You need to get your congressional representatives, and if they can get a nudge from the owners of your teams, that's fine. But put your attention in the changing law, not getting some athlete or some owner to come out and say, yeah, I believe everyone should be treated equal. They didn't say anything 4 years ago. They got to get to the law, Big C. They got to know who Representative Sheila Jackson Lee is. She's already put out proposals before Colin Kaepernick even took a knee, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that bill has been there for a long time, Charles, but you got to also understand there were 15 NFL owners that donate money to the Donald Trump campaign. So you haven't heard one owner speak out, Charlton, since this social injustice marches have been going on in the United States for the past 23 days. You haven't heard one NFL owner speak out.
Yeah.
You think about that. The most powerful organization in America, beyond Congress, beyond the Senate, the owners in the NFL carry that much power that they have not spoken out. And there's a reason for it, Charlton, because those elected officials live off of what these owners give them.
Yeah.
And these owners get a lot of benefits from what those elected officials do not obstruct when they're making laws, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons they didn't speak out against Trump, because they didn't want him to take away their collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
And if he takes that away, then all of a sudden they're going to be exposed financially. So they kept quiet every time he said something bad, and they're still staying quiet with him saying something bad. And when he sent out a tweet last week that if the players kneel, he won't be watching NFL, damn, one person won't watch the NFL. I think everybody would be butthurt behind that.
Yeah, obviously he's not watching it now because he thought it was about the flag, but he's starting to capitulate. He may have to start using his left hand more since his right hand doesn't seem to work as well as it used to even a month ago. I want to ask you something, too, because I love how sports has really brought people together to exchange dialogue from all over the globe, and I'm really appreciative, whether it's Zimbabwe to Africa to Afghanistan, Big C, to Dubai. We have people in Canada and all in between, Latin America, Europe. People are talking. When they were wearing I Can't Breathe and Black Lives Matter in Germany, the Germans, they received the Marshall Plan when black Americans who fought to defeat Germany and Adolf Hitler in World War II, they didn't get any, in World War I, they didn't get anything. They didn't get anything even after World War II, Big C. They didn't get anything whatsoever with the Marshall Plan built up after World War II. It's a shame, but we keep going forward. I want to just turn this real quick to some of your friends down there in the South in NASCAR. Dale Earnhardt Jr. headlines NASCAR Hall of Fame class. Also, when I think about NASCAR banning the Confederate flag, and a lot of people, good or bad, have their own opinions about it, I think NASCAR, to make that statement, is important. It's like building a wall. It's one brick at a time, and I appreciate what NASCAR is doing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it was important that they made that symbolic change, Sean. And you say one brick at a time. And I think about the bricks that were thrown in Los Angeles back in 1992 during the Rodney King beating.
Yeah.
And how has Black America advanced since that beating that was witnessed on television versus the last couple of brutal events that we've seen against Black Americans on television? Have laws changed? Have Black society advanced from that? Has Black society gotten equal treatment under the law? Since the beating we saw of Rodney King in Los Angeles, it sparked the riots down there, to the latest beating and killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And have we seen the curve turn towards blacks being equal in society?
I think we have, Big C. I mean, not to be simplistic about it, the country did elect President Barack Obama, and that to be the 44th president of the United States. Change doesn't always happen one day at a time. It happens step by step. There's small steps and there's big steps. And it takes good people, no matter what color you are. I think at one point in time, it's a little bit deeper to get into. I know we have only a few minutes left on the program. But there's a thing that we got to understand, that we're all from the same tribe. All life began on the African continent. And even with our religious system, everybody wants to pray before a game, or they want to raise their, take a knee or whatever it is. They want to pray. They want to sing the Star Spangled Banner. Until religion really reaches into the hearts of people and realize that there's only one race of people, and all life began in Africa out of the womb of a black woman. That's according to science, Big C. And if they don't do that, and when you go to church and you're proselytized to accept Christ as your Lord and personal Savior, a lot of churches still have a white Jesus in their churches. And I've asked every pastor that I've ever met, especially the white ones, show me the scripture in the Bible where Jesus is white. And they don't exist, but they'll still put it up on their church walls, and that helps people get indoctrinated into this superiority garbage. It's more than just politics, Big C. It's religious, it's financial. There's so many things we have to do to correct it, Big C. Your thoughts?
I don't, religious is to say it's religious is not. I mean, you look at Alexander Stephens, whose statue sits in the nation's capital, Charleston, who was the vice president of the Confederacy. When you talk about Googling somebody, that's somebody you need to Google, and you wonder why his statue still sits in the rotunda of the nation's capital, and he was the vice president of the Confederacy. He was convicted for treason and all of that. And when you look at what he said about black people in America, that means that white people still understand and respect what he said, because his statue still sits in the rotunda of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. When you still pay homage to these people of the Confederacy, the slave owners, Charlton, and saying, well, that was back then, that legacy lives on because that bloodline still exists. Just like you say the black bloodline exists, that white bloodline still exists. That history of their families and their heritage exists. They spew it on when they get together for family gatherings, for family reunions, family Sunday dinner. They still talk the same jargon. That's the reason why this stuff doesn't go away. As much as we say time will pass, time doesn't pass. Time stands still. Because when you go back and you witness that beating of Rodney King by all those officers in Los Angeles back in '92, and you witness what happened to George Floyd 3 weeks ago in Minneapolis, tell me what's the difference. Tell me what's the difference. How did America change? Yes, they were fired, okay? They were fired. But you still, this time you had loss of life. Rodney King didn't lose his life behind that, but you had loss of life with George Floyd. And you would have thought that that would have been a salient moment in history of America that white people would have said, okay, we got to stop doing this. What happened on Friday? They shoot a black man for running away from a scene. You shoot him in the back. In the back. You didn't shoot him when you had a chance to be face-to-face with him. You didn't, and he told you he would walk home. You wouldn't even let him walk home. He was on private property, which he was allowed to be on. But you chose not to. You chose to take his life, and the guy fell asleep at the wheel. It cost him his life, just like George Floyd. A $20 bill cost him his life.
Well, I would still say, no matter what happened, they're still all over this country, all over the world. You see people of all colors, before the lawmakers are doing it, they're tearing down some of those statues. Even Nancy Pelosi, she's called for all those statues to be taken down. So it's a process of happening that didn't even happen 2 years ago, Big C. It didn't even happen even 2 months ago.
Nancy Pelosi's been quiet for a long time because her father, when he was the governor of Maryland, he put some statues up. And she's been quiet about that the whole time. You know, right now it's convenient for everybody to speak. Whether it's Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. And when he gave his, pseudo apology yesterday, Charlton, he had a banner behind him saying "Boys Country."
Yeah.
Boys Country. Think about that. And that was meant to say that, Charlton.
Yeah.
They had that cameraman frame that to say "Boys Country" while he had the black player sitting right there next to him, Charlton. So I look at all the symbolism of what goes on and how people do things. Anybody can make an excuse for why things have not happened.
Yeah.
They can always do that, saying, well, it's not time. We got to have dialogue. 400 damn years we've been asking for dialogue and haven't got it.
Well, Big C, you could always give up, but people who vote, they don't give up. If we keep going back to what happened in 1619, we never would have had elected President Obama, and everybody has the right to vote, and it doesn't mean forget your history. Even some of the the guys down at NASCAR, just asking them questions too. When you think about it, you have a chance to take a flag to your NASCAR race in America for you Americans who really love the American flag, yet you choose to take the Confederacy flag to NASCAR. Do you really have love of country? You can choose the flag. Do they choose the flag for the United States of America or the Confederacy? It's all fair and level work, but people have to vote for what they want, Big C. It's never going to change if we don't make it change, and that's what voting's for. That's what we use to eradicate what happened in the past. I want to touch on something because we're so close on time, and I really mean this. The World Trade Organization, it says that Saudi's commitment to piracy and broadcast needs to change. I say give Big C Sports a 5-year, $100 million contract that they gave some other companies. There's a company called DAZN, and there's a lot of people that are bootlegging broadcast. And the World Trade Organization is trying to cramp down on that, Big C. They take over the English Premier League and club in Newcastle in soccer. They have the BN Network, which is banned from operating in Saudi Arabia. It airs some of the world's biggest sports competitions across the Middle East. Just like Big C Sports is. They're fighting in the courts, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, but they have the money to do that, Charlton, and they will win. They've been on the air for some time. The BN Network, they were broadcasting here in the United States as well as around the world.
They broadcast all over the world, but there are people trying to oppose them. I would say give us the $100 million over 5 years. We could do the same thing. I want to say also, as people get ready for sports, Big C, and everybody has their own reason as to why or who's going to come out and talk. I know that you're into sometime the WWE, but WWE, they've actually decided to ban one of their wrestling matches because of COVID-19. Even if you come out to Hollywood, the Oscars, they're postponed. Actually, they're going to put the pause on the celebration for COVID-19. They're going to move it back to the 2021. I mean, everybody has their own thoughts on how to stay healthy. I love doing what we do on our show. It's so important to me. I know if we don't talk about things, it won't change. In Ottawa, Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is open to the NHL hosting a bubble city for NHL to carry on even during COVID-19. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as we look for this cry for sport, you don't hear the athletes desperately saying, we want to get there. They're constantly negotiating over and over. They're prolonging the possibility of the sport restarting.
Yeah.
You don't have the owners coming out speaking. I understand all these leagues have commissioners but you don't have the owners stepping out saying we demand that our employees come back to work.
Yep.
So these athletes are more salient than what people want to give them credit for.
Yeah.
They're not out there trying to put their lives and their family lives at risk. Most of them have enough money to get through the year, Charlton, and they can also file for unemployment.
They can always file for unemployment. In Geneva, a review of Olympic sports bodies published today found none had equal representation of women on their ruling boards. Men were able to stay in high office because of their 1/4 of governing bodies had no term limits for the president. Other elected officials, according to the Association of Summer Olympics International Federation survey, 31 of the sports in Tokyo Olympic programs, that they're excluding women too. That's why women and men and lawmakers should follow Big C Sports. I hope that everybody can just get out and vote and stay safe no matter what. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe. Just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast, and you will hear from our sponsors. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I want to say thank you to all those first responders and nurses, doctors, and paramedics that are out there. And I would suggest to you and anybody else in America to take a trip to Washington, D.C., to the National Museum of American History. And when you walk through there, you will see and feel the souls of your ancestors, and you will have a new purpose and understanding of what black life is in America. We can all give lip service, but you have to sometimes go back into your past to understand where you are.
Very well said. And all we got to do, we got to go forward because you can't go back in time. But you can go back in time every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never ever an excuse for domestic violence or racism. If you know anybody going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day. And Google HR40.